I'll keep this anonymous to avoid recognition since I believe the people involved actually use Reddit. I'm a 28-year-old guy and I've been friends with my roommate, a 25-year-old woman, ever since we were kids. Our families were neighbours and we grew up together. She's like a little sister to me and always has been. After she graduated college, she moved to the same city where I work. Since she couldn't find an apartment close enough to her job, I told her she could live with me. We share bills and became roommates. We never really had problems or fights because we've known each other for so long. However, recently things took a strange turn. She got involved with someone from her work. The guy seemed nice. I only spoke to him 3 times since they usually stayed in her room, but he was friendly, and I was happy she found someone who seemed that nice. After a few months of their relationship, she sent me a text saying she needed to talk. I figured something might be wrong with the apartment since it's not uncommon for things to break, but I was wrong. When I got home, we started to talk. It's too long to write everything, so I'll just summarize. She told me that while she enjoyed living with me, her boyfriend was starting to get jealous of his girlfriend living with another man. At first, I raised an eyebrow, but thought this kind of thing isn't uncommon. So I was like, "Oh, it's fine. Just let me know when you plan on leaving. Hope you two find a good place." However, I was wrong. She told me she wasn't leaving. She said it was impossible to find a place closer to work and hoped I would let her take the apartment instead since my job wasn't nearby. The thing is, I love my place. It's close to the gym, grocery store, and pretty much everything I need. I wasn't going to leave my place over something like this, and I told her flat out that it wasn't going to happen. She got visibly upset and started ranting about me being an egotistical jerk and not having empathy to put myself in her shoes. This happened a few days ago, and now she shuts herself in her room, only leaving for work or to pick up her boyfriend, who has become really unfriendly to me. Usually I can be an a-hole, but I don't think this was one of those times. So I thought I'd ask for Reddit's verdict. Am I really such an a-hole? Edit: I didn't expect this to get much attention. For those who've asked, her name isn't on the lease as I've lived here for 2 years before she moved in. Let me get this straight. You've known her for over 2 decades, welcomed her into your home, and now she expects you to leave so she can live there with her jealous boyfriend, whom she's just started dating. Not the a-hole, bro. She is big time. Look at how she treats someone who's like a sibling. Theory: she told her boyfriend it was her place and claimed she was being a great friend by letting you stay there. Now she's caught in a lie. I'm super curious why she isn't moving in with her boyfriend. Why don't she and her boyfriend find their own place, instead of trying to kick out the person who was kind enough to let her move in? This will bite her in the arse. My older brother let my younger brother live in his house when he got fired. The younger brother told his girlfriend and parents that the house was his and he was helping out the older brother. After my younger brother and now sister-in-law got married, everything blew up in their faces. Maybe the original poster needs to mention to his roommate while her boyfriend is in the room how he's the one whose name is on the lease, how he was nice enough to let her move in, and that he has no interest in moving out. Not the a-hole. It was your place first, and she's the one having an issue with the living situation. If her new boyfriend has such a problem with her living with you, he should offer for her to move in with him. What she does is totally her choice, but you shouldn't be forced to move. She's being incredibly unreasonable. You let her live in your place, and if she doesn't want to live with you anymore, she can move. She's being selfish and entitled. Honestly, it sounds like you consider her a friend, but she only considers you a friend when you do things for her and give her what she wants, not the a-hole. Listen up. Don't question your decision or feel guilty about staying in the home you were living in before you offered her a place to stay. Be calm and rational when she brings up her ridiculous arguments. You're egotistical. Ask her to explain how it's egotistical to stay in the apartment you were living in before she moved in. There's no reasonable answer to that because it's not egotistical. You have no empathy. Not true. You told her you understood her position and there would be no hard feelings if she decided to move out. When she says these things, what she really means is, this is what I want, and I don't care if it's right or fair because I want it, so you should do it. Talk about a lack of empathy and an inflated ego. Please do not give in to her absurd demands to upend your life to placate her boyfriend. Since she's cool with being his girlfriend, he can rehome her as you would any other piece of property. You originally lived in the apartment on your own and let her move in because she couldn't afford another place. Now, her turning around and doing this is ridiculous. Give her 30 days to vacate and wash your hands of this issue. When I say this issue, I mean her as well. You've been friends since childhood, and she's turning this on you for a new relationship. Her ego is the one that's out of control. You had empathy when you let her live with you. Next story. My sister, who's 32, asked me if I could babysit Thursday and Friday afternoons after school for her and her husband while they work. I said sure, no problem. I love my niece and nephew, and I love spending time with them. It was also a nice way to get to know her husband's 2 kids better when they had them. It has worked out great for the past 3 years. Then I started doing occasional Saturday nights for their date nights. For a while I've had some issues with her husband. There were nights when he didn't have his kids from a previous relationship, but he still wanted me to babysit. I never felt comfortable with that. When it was his parenting time, I had no problem. But I know his ex from a past job and don't want to get involved with her level of crazy. Babysitting on her parenting time could potentially bring trouble to my door. My sister and I talked about this before, and she got him to back off for the most part. Because of this, I was happy to continue, so last Saturday, I was supposed to babysit for them to have a kid-free night after months of craziness due to COVID. My sister's husband showed up with all the kids because it was their parenting time, plus his ex's younger child and her boyfriend's kids. Nobody said anything to me. I never agreed to have all those kids, and at the door he acted rudely because I told him I wasn't babysitting all those kids. I called my sister and she had no idea he would do that. I told her I'm tired of him pushing and last night crossed a line for me. I'm not willing to subject myself to that pressure again. It made me feel awful having to deal with it while all the kids were standing there, some of whom I'd never even seen before. My sister is understandably hurt, but she understands. Her husband is calling me an a-hole for dropping out of babysitting at the last minute. Am I really the a-hole here? Honestly, I don't think so. He tried to take advantage by dumping more kids on me without warning. He clearly doesn't appreciate the effort it takes to babysit. It's ironic that he doesn't like sudden changes when he was so quick to drop extra kids on me. I wonder how he'd feel if he had to handle a bunch of kids he didn't know while trying to babysit. Your relationship with your niece and nephew is what matters most, and it's great that you've maintained that. It's a shame your sister's husband got greedy, but you stood your ground and kept your family intact. So let me get this straight. Your sister's husband wanted you to babysit not only your sister's kids, but also his own, plus his ex-girlfriend's kids and her new boyfriend's kids. That's a lot to manage. You're definitely not the a-hole here. It's clear he's in the wrong for showing up with all those extra kids without any notice. That's a huge overstep on his part. I thought he was an a-hole for trying to push this on me over the months, but he went even further by dropping off kids I'd never met and expecting me to just go along with it. You made your boundaries clear, and his attempt to spring extra kids on you without notice shows he knew he was out of line. It's unfair to put you in that position. My main concern is your relationship with your niece and nephew. Make sure they understand that the change in babysitting doesn't reflect on them, especially if they're too young to grasp what's going on. Your sister's husband is clearly overstepping, and he doesn't deserve any future babysitting from you. He was banking on you being too easily manipulated to say no in front of all those kids. If his actions were so innocent and well-intentioned, why didn't his wife know about his plans? Kudos to you for standing your ground. I hope your sister gives her husband a serious talking to for this behaviour. Stick to your guns. Never means never. Don't babysit for them again. Now, on to my situation. I'm a 35-year-old woman who lost my job after the pandemic hit. I found another job at a meat company, but it pays less, is more exhausting, and has longer hours. With 3 kids to support, I needed a job, even though it's tough on my husband. I planned to stay until I found something better because my boss is quite difficult to work with. A while ago, my 19-year-old niece was looking for a part-time job, and since there was an opening at my workplace, I recommended her to my superiors. My niece's family is wealthy and supports her studies and living expenses. She just wanted extra allowance. Soon my niece discovered that many of us at the company weren't getting standard overtime pay and were working beyond the norm. She was appalled and wanted to file a complaint. I begged her not to, not out of love for the company, but because many of us need this job to support our families. My niece ignored me and made a big fuss, posting pictures, videos and long posts on social media and filing reports. As a result, the company decided to lay off a portion of its staff, including me. Some of my former co-workers seem to be avoiding me, probably blaming me for recommending my niece. I've been keeping my distance from my niece, even though I know her intentions were good. I still lost my job, and she's been texting me with all sorts of reasons why what she did was right. When I ignored her, she sent more messages, filled with long paragraphs, hoping I'd acknowledge her stance. I didn't want to argue with someone half my age who's still living comfortably with her parents, so I finally replied, "I just hope you're proud of yourself." Later, my brother texted me saying I was being unkind to his daughter. He believes that, as her aunt who witnessed workplace toxicity, I should encourage her to continue fighting for what's right. I may be unemployed, but I'd rather spend my time job hunting than getting involved in this conflict. Am I the a-hole here? No, there are no a-holes in this situation except for the company. What your niece did was right, but unfortunately it resulted in you and other workers suffering. She didn't rely on that income, so she had the luxury of reporting the company. It's a tough situation, and the real a-hole here is the company. Your niece tried to do the right thing, but doing what's right and staying employed aren't always the same in the real world. While her actions might have had negative consequences, they're pushing for better working conditions for future employees. The meat industry in particular is notorious for its poor treatment of workers, so some pushback is necessary. Your niece did nothing wrong, and the company was breaking the law and mistreating its employees. Their response to her accusations was even worse. They're the real a-holes here. I understand why you're upset since you need this job, but getting angry at your niece for calling out wrongdoing isn't fair. Companies get away with this behaviour because no one calls them out. It's unfortunate that you're caught in the middle, but she's not to blame. When we attack whistleblowers and complainers who are right, we're just helping these awful companies avoid scrutiny. Your niece reported illegal practices, and not doing so would mean letting businesses continue mistreating employees. You were likely fired in retaliation. Depending on where you live, you might have a strong legal case against the company. Don't be angry at your niece for exposing the company's illegal activities. Be angry at the company for treating you badly and firing you. The real issue here is the company's disgusting practices. You could also pursue a claim for unpaid overtime. Since you're already out of the job, you don't owe the company any sympathy. Go after them for the unpaid overtime and get the paycheck you should have received. Depending on your state's labor laws, you might even be entitled to additional compensation. Next story. My 24-year-old stepdaughter runs an Instagram page and YouTube channel with a decent following. She makes some money from it, and her father wanted her to sign with an agency. He did most of the legwork and had a contract ready. She asked me to review it. While I'm not a lawyer, I've been involved in business negotiations. The contract was biased against her. It gave the agency control over her intellectual property, took more than half of her earnings, and had a vague marketing commitment. The only upside was a $35,000 upfront payment, which she'd have to repay if she didn't meet their content targets. It was a deal that limited her potential gains while protecting their losses. I told her the deal was awful and that she could do much better on her own. She's smart and decided not to sign. She's making enough money to support herself, doing what she loves, and has no desire to go viral. Her father is upset that I interfered, and my wife isn't happy either, since she doesn't want my stepdaughter to be self-employed. I feel a bit guilty because I didn't hold back when I described the deal. My anger and the fallout between her dad and her have strained their relationship. It feels like I've made a family feud worse. Her father is mad at me for sticking my nose into things and upstaging him. He already dislikes me because he's unhappy that his ex-wife married someone else. My wife is annoyed that I encouraged her daughter to continue with her career. You're not the a-hole here. Your stepdaughter asked you to review the deal and you gave your honest opinion. You didn't cause the rift, you just provided advice when asked. It's troubling that both parents seem okay with a company taking advantage of her. It's not your fault. She asked for your advice, you gave it, and she chose not to sign. Her dad can be annoyed, but she's an adult and doesn't have to follow his wishes. If his frustration affects their relationship, that's on him. As for your wife, she might not want her daughter to be self-employed, but it's not her decision. Parents can't choose their child.